Today on the Topping Show, Garth Brooks' Bud Light Boycott 2.0 begins, Twitter to roll out mass censorship, males are banned for competing in women's cycling, Bud Light tweet is more of a dodo than a tweet, and perhaps are they buying likes? Anheuser-Busch CEO is not worried about the boycott, ultra-right beer has a new commercial that goes viral, Ron DeSantis calls on the state of Florida to investigate Bud Light, Juul to make a new product for a comeback, Amazon to build a satellite facility, ESPN is looking for sports organizations for cash infusion investment or perhaps stock, tech giants to take a voluntary vow to restrict AI, and Nissan Skyline may be coming back as an EV SUV. All of that and much, much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and service company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say, he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner and need a little assistance, you reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Now, going on to the business part of the podcast, you have Juul trying to make a comeback. Now, Juul was perhaps the most successful vaping company in history. When you look at the fascinating freakonomics of a company coming out with a product and just exponentially having success, they pretty much fit that to the letter. I mean, you had, I believe, it was Marlboro and a couple of the legacy cigarette manufacturers back in the 1980s. They actually came out with an interesting technology where you could recharge a reusable vape-like cigarette, but is a good example of the timing just wasn't right. It wasn't quite right. The users at the time, back in a couple decades ago, they said it was a stale flavor, felt artificial, felt weird to have plastic as opposed to the cigarette, nowadays we make out of paper and tobacco, well, all days. And the product just kind of flopped and really wasn't evaluated for a while. And then all of a sudden, just vaping became a huge social phenomenon, partially because you had smoking being banned virtually everywhere, even in the freedom of the United States. So nicotine addicts had to find some sort of juicy alternative. And juicy is a moderate pun because Juul came over, they were under a lot of scrutiny because they had fruit flavored little cartridges for their Juul e-cigs. And the argument was that they were targeting children who are underage to purchase the product. And somehow this product was also getting to a lot of children's hands and they were being marketed towards children. That actually caused Juul to have a settlement of $462 million between multiple states in the United States to settle those claims of inappropriate advertising to minors and targeting them. Now, this whole controversy actually caused the FDA to pull their product from the shelves temporarily, which, of course, as a company, that's perhaps the worst possible thing imaginable, is to have your product ready to go. You've taken all that time to manufacture, to package it, put it right on the shelf. Sometimes you have to pay these stores for that premium shelf space, and apparently this is alleged because they settled outside of court, or they settled rather, but yeah, they apparently targeted kids, and it turns out, yeah, that's pretty morally vacuous, and the United States didn't appreciate that, so they pulled the product. Now, the big issue with a lot of these were the cartridges. Now, these little cartridges, you saw one or two stories where there's really a lot of negative publicity against the vaping companies because apparently there's a illicit substance, I believe it was marijuana, as well as it was infused with a carcinogen, which actually caused someone to die. So someone died from a vape pen, but that's what the article said. If you read the article, which I know, math, science, history scores are all-time low in the United States. Reading is a lost art. I perhaps the only one I know in my age bracket who actually purchases books, and physically I don't like them. But if you actually read the article, it was because they would be using third-party cartridges, aka vape cartridges with a little liquid substance made by a third party, sometimes homemade. They actually had this carcinogen, or I guess, cigarettes are carcinogenic in and of itself, the extra carcinogenic substance, which caused the fatalities from the vape pen in and of itself. I'm not saying vape pens in general are a safe alternative to tobacco products. That's a whole topic in and of itself, which we're still waiting for a lot of third-party analysis to go over that. There are pros and cons to each, and you've heard horror stories on both sides of the aisle. But in terms of those cartridges, they're pretty unregulated, kind of like printer cartridges back in the day. Anyone can get cartridges and slap it into a Juul. Juul being the the main brand that has the e-cig. Looks like a little pen. Now, it almost seems like they're going to go the printer route. So the new product that, again, they're right now proposing and giving it to the FDA in terms of they're giving them the blueprints and they're giving them the idea of here's a new proprietary vape pen. It will apparently have child locks and it will also have ways to limit the other third-party cartridges so that you cannot use third-party cartridges in order on the actual product, which is an interesting idea. In practice, it's probably going to be a hilarious epic fail. Perhaps they're just doing this for marketing, because people, especially young folks, they're really good at social engineering and hacking. You saw this with those stupid e-scooter things where within a couple weeks you had people actually hacking it so they could actually use those little scooters for free, as opposed to scanning it with a credit card and like actually legitimately using the product. Now, in terms of a vape pen where they claim it's going to have an age verification as well as lock out third-party cartridges, it might be a printer, which, yeah, printers are a loss leader. That's why you have to pay more for ink. They lose money on the printer itself. But the crux of the story is most printers on the commercial market or even the consumer market, they have those little cartridges that actually have circuits, and you actually have proprietary programming. So, like, for example, an HP printer will only use HP ink, and it'll actually detect it. And if that, rudimentarily speaking, if they doesn't line up, if it doesn't detect an authorized HP product, it's disabled. It won't work. Even if physically the cartridges look the same, it won't work. Granted, there's ways to hack that. Obviously, it's technology. There's no such thing as something that's 100% secure. You can hack anything these days with enough time and resources. So it'll be interesting to see how easy can you hack it. So they claim it's going to have like an age verification or parental control. Is that something where the parent is going to have like a device or they have to scan an ID in order to use the vape pen? At the end of the day, it's an interesting idea. I partially suspect they're doing it just for marketing to try to appease some of the scrutiny that has come over the company. And it'll be interesting to see, does this belong in the business blunder of the day if it's a fiscal fail? That'll be interesting, Time, as I always say, shall tell. Thank you again for taking the time to tune in. I really appreciate it if you take the time to subscribe. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of July, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers. Heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.